Let's talk about our Revolutionary War for a moment. We lost the vast majority of battles, and yet George Washington's considered a tremendous general, a great general, who rewrote the book of tactics. It was a regular army, of course, but they had to rely heavily on volunteers, militia. But at the end of their contracts or their volunteer period, they were free to go home, and often they were threatened to, and often they did. Look what happened at Valley Forge, the suffering, the disease, the death. Now, they listen to people on TV. How much more do we have to do for these Ukrainians? The fact is, we would not have won the Revolutionary War but for the help of the French. And after the Revolutionary War, the French monarchy had no money left. It's not something I recommend, but they were broke in supporting us. And why were they supporting us? Because the two greatest powers on the face of the earth were the British and the French. And they were obviously at each other's throats. At the Battle of Yorktown, or the Siege of Yorktown, if you prefer, the Battle of Yorktown, that was the battle that ended effectively, the Revolutionary War. The British general was a brilliant man, General Cornwallis. He's a brilliant man. Now, what happened? Well, to make a long story short, this stuff always interests me. I don't know how much it interests everybody else. The Battle of Yorktown, there were literally more French soldiers and sailors than there were American soldiers. Did you know that? There were about, I'm doing this by recollection, there were about 9,000, 10,000 American soldiers and almost 30,000 French when you include their naval power. The French came in through the rivers, coordinating with Washington and his forces, and bombarded the British forces from their ships, as well as our men fighting. And just as an aside, any slave who would fight in the Revolutionary War was given his freedom, he and his family. People might find that interesting. And there were several black heroes during the Revolutionary War. In any event, the Siege of Yorktown, the Battle of Yorktown, it went from September 28 to October 19. The land and sea campaign. The British forces were entrapped. Cornwallis tried an escape. It didn't work. They were encircled. And they sued for truce and peace, and that's what they got. And in the end, it ended the Revolutionary War. Imagine if the French, who literally sent troops and sailors into this war, way off, thousands and thousands of miles away in this North American continent, this country of colonists. You didn't have a whole lot in common with them. Imagine if they cut off all support, resources, their ships, everything. There wouldn't be a United States of America. And the men who most of us now revere, the founding fathers all would have been hanged, tortured and then hanged. But given support, given ammunition, we won. Very, very, very brave men. So terribly outnumbered. And so many others brutally killed, fighting for liberty, for their freedom, for their country, for their family. That's what the Ukrainians are doing. They didn't invade Russia. Russia invaded them. Their population is being slaughtered. The Russian population is not being slaughtered. Any slaughter that's going on is being done by Putin. Their women are being raped. Their children are being taken to concentration camps in the interior of Russia for re-education and to be raised as Russians. But meanwhile, they're using these people for slave labor in Russia. None of that's going on in Ukraine, despite the best efforts of the Putin wing of the media and the Republican Party and the pseudo-conservative movement to spread their propaganda. The Ukrainians want their liberty. They suffered genocide in 1932. They know what it is. At the hands of the Russians and Stalin. And they will fight to the death because they know what they're up against. And the fact that we're providing them with arms and money should make you proud. Because it is they that stand between the Russians and the Poles, the Russians and the Romanians, the Russians and other countries in Eastern Europe. And people who say there's no evidence of this are not listening to Vladimir Putin.